I'm here with Luke GW, and he has joined me to talk about his music and how lockdown has impacted him creating his music. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi guys. So my name's Luke GW. I'm a singer-songwriter from Nottingham. I've been trying to do music for like what three-ish years now. So yeah. I hope you enjoy the interview.
It's nice to have you on my channel.
Yeah,
So what got you into music?
right. Long time now, really. So my family as a whole have been quite musical. So from my mum's side, her uncle and her dad were both choral masters at various churches and things like that. My dad's dad, he sings in a choir, still does. My mum's touched on violin for a little bit, so we've been a pretty musical family. Even my dad actually ventured into a band at one point, which was a strange fact when he told me that. But yeah, we've been a musical family for ages and ages. But it's mainly been in the sort of classical side. So I'm the only one really who's ventured into the more contemporary side of music, which has obviously brought about its troubles, with opinionated grandpas and things like this. They're like, "Oh, you learn Beethoven and stuff," when I just want to really just belt out some Bon Jovi or something like that. But yeah, so also year 9, I think I started myself my first band. It was just a bit of a mess about thing. Did my first proper gig in year 10, and it was just that performance feeling, the real buzz that you got from performing and everybody loving what you were doing. It sounded rubbish, but still feeling was amazing, and loved it. And I've never really wanted to do anything else now I think about it. So yeah, that's really how it all started, to be honest.
It's nice to hear about your journey of how it you came into
Yeah,
music. So it's good.
yeah,
So you've recently released your single "Worth It in the Morning" at the end of October. Would you like to tell us a bit about it?
yeah. So where do I start? Really, this song's been it's been written and finished for well over a year now, actually. But until lockdown, which we'll get onto later on, I've not really had the means of being able to be consistent with producing it and things, which has meant that it's been dragged out. So I've had 5 or 6 versions of this song that have been recorded using mainly school's equipment until the latest version, which I've managed to get myself the equipment to record and produce. So that's been written for well over a year, recorded for a year. As I say, many different versions of the song. And it's only since lockdown happened where I really said, you know what, I'm going to write this, I'm going to finish it, and I'm going to release it. And obviously, we've managed to do that. And it's been a great process, to be honest. I kind of tried to mix some of like the events that have happened to me, along with stories that other people have told me, along with also witnessed true events that I've seen, as well as not just the stuff that's happened to me. So it's really come from three different areas to try and create this one song about sort of yeah, teenagers' first sort of like night out or a house party or something like that, the general sort of vibe, and all the stuff, bad and good, that can happen, really. So yeah, that's the backing to it, to be honest. And it was real good fun producing my own stuff, really.
It's a great song as well.
Oh, thank you.
So what have been your highlights so far in releasing the single?
Well, there's been quite a few, to be honest. Obviously, you love all of the positive support and the people who share it and things like that. But I try myself not to focus too much on the positives, because it eventually makes it quite difficult to take negative feedback as well. So I try, and whilst I'm obviously so grateful for people saying, "Oh, it's a great song," that sort of stuff, they really like it. I make sure that I don't let it get to my head, because things like ego and this sort of stuff really get in the way sometimes. So, and I really want to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
um Obviously the streams is nice. The amount of streams that you get is always nice to see. That first rocket up
Yeah,
is always lovely.
it is.
But yeah, it's been really, as a whole, it's been a highlight. But I do have to say, this is weird, and again, we'll get onto this later on. A different view that I've got, actually a highlight of it, is the negative feedback that I've got. So obviously you get people who don't like what you produce stuff, and they let you know. But the way that my brain works is that I use it to help produce more stuff in the
Yeah.
future. So it's a weird sort of flip on what happens as well. So the negative stuff's also a highlight for me, which is classed as weird, but it works. So.
Well, yeah, I get it. So how do you feel the internet's impacted your music career?
Oh, I think most artists actually will agree with this, and you might do as well. Actually, the internet as a whole, especially with social media, has made exposure and things so much easier, not necessarily easier, but more accessible. So you're there in front of, for instance, me, it's like just over 500 people, and they can technically look at you whenever they wish, really, and they can view your brand, as it were, anything you post. It's really made exposure and things and a more personal relationship with fans and things like that a lot easier to do. I also think that it makes artists have a more sort of permanent memory bank, as it were, because if you don't take down your posts, you can show your progress, which is what I intend to do with my Spotify. um, when I get better and things, the mixers will come along, everything will start to sound better, my voice will change, that sort of stuff. I intend to keep the old stuff on there to show people that it's not all about being good from the get-go, because I know that there's a hell of a lot of progress that I've got to make. But social media is enabling us to see the progress if we use it in the right way, I think, personally. Do you feel the same, really?
Yeah, you kind of see the journey you go through from.
Yeah. It makes you look a little bit more human, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what inspires you to create the music you create?
Oh, I think a couple of things, to be honest. First of all, I've got a very set goal that I want to do, and that goal, that sort of dream or plan, is what inspires and motivates me to progress each and every day, which I think is vital for anybody who really wants to do anything, actually. Um, People have to have a set, fixed number one. It's almost tunnel vision, really, and it should drive them. It drives me. It should drive everybody. So that's the main sort of inspiration for me. But also you got your external sources, like my dad, I think, has some of the best music taste in the world. It's sort of like mid 80s to 90s rock. It's brilliant. I absolutely love it. And that's what I try and sort of not only bring into the music, but I try and listen to it and see, it inspires me to make music of that quality as well. Write songs that really connect with people and things like that, which is another inspiration for me, really. But yeah, main one is me internal drive, to be honest, and I think it's important for most people.
Yes, sounds good.
Yeah.
So do you feel that lockdown's had an impact on you creating your music, and how have you dealt with any tough times that you've come across?
It's it's a tender subject for most musicians, I think, at the moment, because it's really a freelance job, and you rely on other people to not to give you money, but it's kind of your source of income through other people, who in turn have to work to help you as well. So if they're not working, it impacts you that way. But there's obviously that obvious there's the obvious impact that it has, but the sort of underlying impact is that people in the music industry often rely on each other to work. That's my security light, not they often rely on each other to work together, I think. So obviously you've got your artist in your studios. In the first lockdown, that wasn't happening. So a lot of people just weren't able to produce because there was no one there to work with. Unless you're like me, who worked and managed to buy themselves the equipment, not necessarily because they couldn't at the time afford to go into a studio if lockdown wasn't there. It's just the way that I produce on this laptop.
Yeah.
It's the way that I work. But unless you had that, I feel like it was really difficult physically and also mentally as well, because you're so isolated.
Yeah.
You know, I know artists that would be going into studios 4, 5, 6 times a week,
Yeah.
suddenly chopped to none.
And they just couldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of artists will agree with me in saying that it was very, very tough. But for me, I went through a difficult period as well. And what I'd just like to touch on would be how mindset and things like that can help you. So basically, the way that I look at things is that if something like a negative event, thought, or something like that has happened,
Yeah.
I've kind of set myself up to use it as a trigger
Yeah.
to do something productive.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you're having one of the days where you really don't feel like getting out of bed to do anything,
Yeah.
I've trained myself kind of to notice that feeling and then feel guilty
Yeah.
if I don't do something about it, which is it's weird. Again, I told you I was weird at the start.
No, I get what you mean.
Yeah. So, for instance, with me, it doesn't have to be this, but with me, I like to go to the gym before I do anything in the morning.
Yeah.
So I just go into my garden room, lift a couple of weights in the morning. It gets me set up.
Yeah.
And I know that even if I feel like I don't want to get out of bed in the morning, which has happened through this lockdown, lots of artists will agree.
Yeah.
There's just been days where you almost have to roll out of bed. I think it's about training yourself to make sure that when you feel like that, it triggers you to do something about it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, action cures anxiety and stuff like that. And personally, I think lockdowns made me knuckle down a little bit more and focus on my music. So at the start, I went to work at my local co-op.
Yeah.
I'm still there earning money, and that's how I've managed to have this aim, and I've managed to pay for, you know, microphones, the laptop, the software to do all of this production.
Yeah.
You know, it's really made me knuckle down and focus on my goals, like getting this stuff to produce, that sort of thing. Hate as well. You've got loads of people who've got pent up energy and stuff, which I think, again, lots of people will agree with. There's been so much pent up sort of anger and rage through this lockdown because everyone's constricted.
Yeah.
And the way that I deal with that is to almost feel empathetic and not sorry for them, but to try and understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
So I know, for instance, on the release of my song, as I mentioned earlier, you get hate for everything, but I try to view it from their perspective and sort of rationalize what they're trying to think, what they're trying to say, get across, etc., etc. And that in turn helps me to be able to see that what they're saying actually doesn't matter, because it's not what's in my head, it's in their head.
No, yeah.
So I think that's a really important way of looking at things.
Yeah.
And it's certainly allowed me to get past the really tough times that everybody's had.
Yeah.
But it's also allowing me to grow at the same time. So we've got defenses up, but then you're also growing as well, which I think has been really important and probably been a sanity saver for me over this past year. It's been crazy. But yeah, that's how I've dealt with the lockdown so far. And I think that doing it that way, it doesn't necessarily work for everyone, but it's what's worked for me. And I think it might be something to take away, you know.
No, definitely. It may help somebody else as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So if you could change anything about the music industry, what would it be?
Oof. That's a difficult one, that, to be honest. I'd like to make overnight success disappear. I'll tell you why. Because I think most people want this for a start. I wanted it at the start. I was like, I'm going to be in a band. In a year, I'm going to be playing on stages with lights and smoke machines and all this sort of stuff. And it's that quick success that ruins you because you're not prepared. For me, I'm all about the long game. I know where I want to be, and I know that every day, I'm sure as hell going to get there for a start, but every day it's that little step that I can take instead of taking a mile in a week, just like an inch a day, and it'll all add up, and eventually you'll have such a solid foundation that overnight success is going to be like, well, why did I even think about that? Why did I want to do that? Which I think, whilst a lot of people would view overnight success as something, especially with TikTok, people will see overnight success as the way to go now. You know, you can make like $2,000 on a TikTok video or something, if you know, that sort of stuff. But realistically, can you do that same thing 10 times, 15 times, 20 times? Can you do it again and again and again? If not, is it sustainable? That's the way that I look at it, and that's one thing that I'd like to get rid of. But that's down to everyone's interests, isn't it? So it's not something I can change.
So what's next for you?
What's next? Well, I've got uni next year, so I've kind of had a bit of a gap year this year because I don't think that I want to spend $9,000 to be on Skype. So it's uni this year, next year. I'm looking at Leeds Conservatoire and Beckett for production and performance. You know, Bath Spa as well, also Notts Trent for some audio engineering stuff, which I think is quite cool. But in the meantime, between then and now, it's just day in, day out practice, singing lessons, doing singing exercises, guitar practice day in, day out, producing, just that, just the massive practice and developing the skills, I think, is really what my next step until university will be. And that won't stop. That will keep going all through uni as well, because it's just the way that I work. It's weird, but yeah,
that's great. Finally, just for a bit of fun, if you could time travel, where would you go and why?
I'm going to say 1985 to 1995, just for the rock. Just for the rock and the gigs and everything. You know what, actually, because the other day I watched, what is it, Rock of Ages. Have you seen it?
No, I've not. No, I've heard of it.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's so good. And I want to go back there. I want that to be now. The music, the vibe and everything like that. I want that to be now. If I could go anywhere, 85 to 95, or even maybe the 80s, who knows, early 80s. That's the era that I'd go for. I'd absolutely love for that to happen. But yeah.
Cool. So a massive thank you, Luke, for joining me on my channel. It's been great to chat with you. And if anyone would like to check out Luke's music, I'll leave all the links in the description below. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much for having me on.